The Suzuki VGT Gr.3 has only been added with update 1.17 in June 2022. Have you ever wondered why this car is so strange to drive? And why it is crucial to learn manual shifting for this car? Let's check this with our test program. By now you should be familiar with the Vision Gran Turismo program. Many different manufacturers produce their vision of a digital car. While the cars are often a hit and miss, with especially the electric cars not getting much attention, some of these cars are very interesting, either by having ridiculous power outputs or because they can have real-life impact and even possibly be produced, like the McLaren Solus. The Suzuki VGT was made available to Gran Turismo 7 in update 1.15. It is one of the more interesting cars out of the VGT program. The car design is a mix between the Cappuccino and the GSX R4. It is a hybrid with a 7-speed gearbox and a power output of 432 PS, with an around 50-50 distribution between petrol and electric power. Next to the 3 electric engines, the 1.3-liter petrol engine comes out directly off the Hayabusa motorcycle. Despite having 4 engines, it still only weighs 970 kilograms. The Gr.3 version switches to RVD and removes the electric engines. Instead, 2 Hayabusa engines are fused together to form an 8-cylinder with 2.7-liter displacement. Additionally, a turbocharger is fitted as well, bringing the car to a power output of 580 PS and a weight of 1,220 kilograms. In the 2026 manufacturers ranking, recorded on the 27th of June 2026, Suzuki ranked in P22 overall, with a total of 484 points over all 3 classes. In the highest class, GT1, it was placed in P20, with 131.5 points. The best performance is recorded in the GT2 class, placing 8 with 262 points. However, it placed abysmal in the GT3 class, placing it in P26 out of 27 manufacturers, with roughly 90.5 points. So this car manufacturer is also quite unsuccessful. But is this for a good reason? And why is it one of the most difficult cars to be fast with? Let's find out. The Suzuki VGT Gr.3 has the standard ride height of 60 and 70 and frequencies of 3.6 Hz at the front and 3.2 Hz at the back. The downforce levels of 400 at the front and 600 at the rear mean that the car has been set to a neutral character by default. It also has a weight distribution of 50-50, which should have its advantages in traction. If you look at the engine and torque curves, this is a very interesting line. The Suzuki must be revved at higher RPMs, but has an area where the power is best. But this is at around 9,000 to 10,500 RPM. Power drops sharply after that until 12,000 RPM. This means that the car should perform best by revving it until 10,500 RPM and should in no circumstances be over-revved, otherwise lots of time is lost. The gearbox ratios also show an ideal shifting point at 11,700 RPM. It has a 7-speed gearbox, with the first gear reaching slightly over 100 kph and all the gears set so that the next gear lands between 9,000 to 10,000 RPM. With these settings, the car should be okay with a standing start and should be slightly below ideal RPM range when reaching top speed. However, I will say that 11,700 RPM is not the ideal shifting point. It should be a lot earlier at around 10,500 RPM, but we'll see. Now that we know how the car works, I will test the acceleration capabilities. In the first test, I will drive on Tokyo Expressway east clockwise in a custom race with a Group 4 opponent behind me, with a flying start. According to what we learned with the power curve, this could be the fastest time already. We set an initial time of 24.061. The important settings are BOP on, all setup options except brake bias set off, tire wear times 1, fuel depletion times 1, same conditions set on, and we will use medium racing tires and drive with bumper cam. Shifting at the 50% mark only shows a little difference, but we're already slower. Here's a 24.074. From the point the game releases me, I will stay on the lane I started and drive until the first sector ends, and note down the time. The car feels amazing, slower than before, at 24.170. I will repeat these tests several times and with different shifting points. Once at 25% of the ref bar, 50%, 75%, 90%, 100%, and as a last test, rev it out as much as possible. With the shifting point at 90%, we experience another slower time. This time it's a 24.302. If there is a wide difference between 100% rev bar and maximum revs, I will do a further test at half point. For this test, this was not necessary. We once again get slower, the rev bar is cursed. We end up with a 24.430. All times will be noted down and you will see what effects shifting at the right point has for the car. In the end, only the fastest time out of the set times will count. Now the car really feels like a turtle. You are always outside of the ideal power output and you are driving with significantly less power. We settle with a 24.830, exactly 4/10 slower than before. The Suzuki is slightly slower in acceleration than the Mitsubishi, but not much. It is a low rever, which is the case for many Suzukis though. In the second test, I will accelerate from a standstill, and at the ideal shifting point which we saw in the previous test. If you will drive a race or championship that has standing starts, this will be important, because some cars have long first gears, which means that they will take longer to accelerate, and you might be losing positions at the start. The weight distribution helps giving the rear tires the needed traction. We end this test with a 28.028. With a standing start, the Suzuki has a slight advantage over the Mitsubishi thanks to the better traction from the more rear-heavy weight distribution. Next, we will do two top speed tests. For the first test, I will open a private online lobby and select Special Stage Route X. The important settings are BOP on, all setup options except brake bias set off, tire wear times 1, fuel depletion times 1, same conditions set on, and we will use medium racing tires and drive with bonnet cam. The straight is long enough for the car to reach its natural top speed after 10 km. However, the car should stay stable within the last 600 meters and not lose speed. If it does, I'll drive to the other side of the oval and drive a few more kilometers until the speed sets. Despite having an open roof and a lot less power, the Suzuki should be close to the top speed of the Mitsubishi. However, I think the gearbox hinders the car greatly as it is not running at peak power. We dropped to 276 kph with less than 600 meters left, so I'll take the other straight for the final measurement. Yep, 376 kph. I expected a bit more, honestly. This means that the Mitsubishi and the Suzuki have a tie in the top speed rating. You will see later why the Suzuki is rated higher though. For the second test, we'll change the track to the Daytona Tri-Oval and drive 2 laps. The settings stay the same except for the track. The first lap does not count as it is meant to get up to speed. The second lap will count and the lap time will be recorded. This test is done to check how much speed the cars lose during cornering, which has to do with the cornering itself, the aerodynamics and the engine curves of the cars. Now this test will have its first valid reason. Both the Mitsubishi and Suzuki have the same top speed, but which car loses more time? In the end, the Suzuki ends up with a lap time of 52.845. This means that the Suzuki is slower in the oval by 0.2, despite the same top speed. The next 3 tests will be quite straightforward. I will test the cars on track and record the lap times. The important settings are BOP on, all setup options except brake bias set off, tire wear times 1, fuel depletion times 1, same conditions set on, weak shortcut penalties, and we will use medium racing tires and drive with cockpit cam. For each test I will drive 1 out lap and 10 timed laps, and I will do this twice. This means that each car gets 20 timed laps. Additionally, the total of best sector times and the optimal lap time will be counted instead of the fastest driven lap, as this provides a far fairer statement. Genuinely, a fastest lap can have errors in it. This will be eliminated through this method. The low speed BOP test will take place in Brands Hatch. This track was chosen due to most low speed BOP tracks having primarily slow speed corners, whereas you see many mid speed corners here as well. Honestly, the car does not feel great at all here. It just doesn't corner well, and it is very loose on throttle. Not enjoyable. Luckily, in cockpit cam, you can see where you can shift. In the end, we set an optimal lap time of 1:24.777. This lap time was not competitive at all, and we are almost 0.6 behind the Mitsubishi, which is a lot on such a short circuit. For the medium speed BOP test, I have chosen Interlagos as the track to go to. Interlagos, at least in Formula 1, is a circuit where most cars and drivers are extremely close together in lap times. While the first section tests mid and high speed cornering, the second section tests mechanical grip, whereas the last section tests acceleration and top speed. Unfortunately, I had problems with the recording. No sound was recorded. This will be a problem for the next 4 cars. I see no sense re-recording these parts because the lap times will be different again I have spent around 4 hours of driving, so yeah, I'm not doing this again. Around Interlagos, the Suzuki feels much better. It feels like low speed corners are less of a problem than the high speed corners. Considering how slow it felt and it was in Brands Hatch, I guess it's mainly mid-speed corners that are the weakness of this car. We set an optimal lap time of 1:33.093. Now this looks more like it. The Suzuki is still slower, but only 200ths of a second. For the high-speed BOP test, I have chosen the Autodromo Nazionale Monza as our test circuit. While the first section tests acceleration and mechanical grip, medium and high-speed cornering is tested in the second and third section. Another reason why this circuit was chosen is to test how good the cars are over curbs, as Monza has quite some aggressive curbs to master, which some cars can react allergic to. The low speed chicanes are not that much of a problem. However, what I feel is very difficult to drive is the Ascari chicane. The car has some understeer in these mid-speed corners. This is not ideal. I also think it's more difficult over curbs. Anyway, we set an optimal lap time of 1:49.496. Once again, the Suzuki is slower, this time about 3/10. The many acceleration zones do not help the Suzuki. The next test will bring us to Dragon Trail Seaside for the endurance test. This test determines how the car fares with fuel depletion and tire wear. The important settings are BOP on, all setup options except brake bias set off, tire wear times 5, fuel depletion times 3, same conditions set on, and we will use soft racing tires and drive with cockpit cam. I will drive race pace here, which means that I will drive a bit safer than in the previous sessions, drive round the lines and look if I can save fuel if the car allows it. This circuit was chosen because it is a medium speed BOP circuit, because it has all types of corners and it is a fair circuit considering tire wear where neither front heavy FR cars nor rear heavy MR or RR cars are at a disadvantage. I will skip the major part of that stint and I'll see you later on when the tires are at its end. So I have driven 9 laps and the tire is on its last legs. The tire wear is quite even, although the fronts are more used. With increasing understeer, we're getting slower each corner. The front tire is completely red now and has almost no grip at all. I will now park and record the distance and fuel usage. I have driven 9.3 laps. This is a good result, but this was to be expected with a 50-50 weight distribution and only 1220 kilograms of weight. This is likely the type of track where the Suzuki can work best. This puts the Suzuki clear in P1. It can drive 2 laps more than the Mitsubishi, which is a lot. It will have an advantage on every track. You can also see that the car has 44 liters left in the tank. We start with 100 liters. This means we used 56 liters. Divided by the 9.3 laps driven, this results in 6.02 liters per lap. This is only slightly below the Mitsubishi in fuel usage, so I think this still is a good result. We have to wait for more cars to see a pattern. The setup tests are useful for 2 reasons. Firstly, it shows how the car is set up and how a few clicks can make the car behave completely differently. Secondly, it shows what potential can be unlocked if you have races and championships where more setup changes are allowed. I will do 2 setup tests. The first test will be a repeat of the special stage Route X top speed test with all setup options allowed. There, the car will be set to minimum downforce and the top speed will be recorded. Due to the engine power curves at different stock downforce levels, the results can differ widely. The Suzuki gains about 6 kph due to the reduced downforce and ends up with 282 km per hour. This is 1 kph more than with the Mitsubishi. In this regard, the long gearbox setting is a benefit for the Suzuki. The second test will be a repeat of the medium BOP test in Interlagos with all setup options allowed. All cars will be set to medium downforce levels on the front and rear, and I will do some suspension and LSD changes for my preference. In some cases, drivability will improve, and in others it will get worse. How much faster or slower the cars can get is up to the standard setting and can differ widely for each car. Since the downforce levels stay the same, but the all familiar settings can be set up to improve the handling, I can get the car to handle more to my liking. It feels more nimble and more oversteery than before. The changes in suspension and LSD settings can be felt immediately. In the end, I was able to improve my lap time with a 1:32.721. So, with the normalized setup, we gain 0.372 seconds. This puts the car in front of the Mitsubishi in lap times and also gives the car a higher ceiling. This test consists of 3 steps. First, another top speed test on special stage Route X will be done. This time the BOP is set to off, and the cars are set up manually to have 5 to 7% more power, depending on the maximum power output of the cars. The setup will be the same as it is when the BOP is on, so stock. Like in the setup tests, this is to see how much each car improves in top speed. The Suzuki gained 6% more power in this test. With a plus of each percent, you would expect the top speed to increase around 1 kph. However, the Suzuki climbs up to 284 kph, a staggering improvement of 8 kph. Once again, this is likely due to the car getting closer to power maximum. In the end, the Suzuki gets around 1.33 kph faster per percent power advantage. Compared to the Mitsubishi, that's a big improvement. This shows that the Suzuki struggles with the current BOP since it can't run in optimal RPM range. Additionally, acceleration tests will be done, both with flying and standing starts, and with an Unimog as an opponent. The shifting points will be the optimal shifting points as determined in the first acceleration test. We end up the acceleration test with a 23.462. In the acceleration test, the Suzuki is 0.599 seconds faster. With each percent power increase, we gain 1/10. For the standing start, the procedure does not need to be changed that much. I can still accelerate with 100% throttle, but a short lift-off is needed. This little adjustment is enough to cost a bit of time. By the way, in the Mitsubishi video, I might have slipped up and switched the two improvements. However, this time I hope I'm correct lol. The Suzuki ends up with a time of 27.553. The Suzuki was 0.475 seconds faster than before, improving by 0.079 seconds with each percent power. The third test will be a repeat of the high-speed BOP test in Monza, again with BOP set to off and the increased power output. Another 20 hot laps will be driven and the optimal time will be noted. Then the lap time will be compared to the high-speed BOP lap time and the value for each percent power increase will be noted down. With this test, you can see how much the car improves by giving 1% more power. The driving behavior of the car does not change too much. The acceleration increases and this makes the traction decrease a bit. The Suzuki feels a bit more understeery in fast corners, which makes sense with the plus of power it has. It ends up with an optimal time of 1:48.544. The time improvement is 0.952 seconds, and there are 0.159 seconds time improvement per percent more power. The result makes sense since the Suzuki has lower power figures than the Mitsubishi. The last test will be another repeat of the high-speed BOP test in Monza, with the same settings as before with the increased power test. This time the initial BOP power output from the BOP will be set again. However, at least for the Group 3 tests, the weight will be increased by 35 kg for each car. This is because the highest ballast weight due to the high-speed BOP is 165 kg. Another 20 hot laps will be driven and the optimal time will be noted down. Then the lap time will be compared to the high-speed BOP lap time and the value for weight increase will be noted down. Basically, the difference in lap times will be divided by 7 to have a 5 kg time loss. With this testing method, you can see how much slower the car gets by adding 5 kg of weight. Suzuki does not feel particularly different, just slower. This is normal if you go with a weight increase. It's just a minimal time loss all across the board. The only thing you might actually feel the weight increase is due to the lower top speed. In the end, we achieve an optimal lap time of 1:49.886. The time loss with a 35 kg heavier car is 0.39 seconds. With every 5 kg weight increase, the time loss is around 0.056 seconds. The second in-depth test is done as well. I needed even more time to prepare this video as I had parallel work to do with an upcoming kart race. I tried fixing mistakes I made in the first video and tried to show even more data. As for the future videos, my goal is to release one video each week. However, in the scorching hot summer weeks, I don't know how much I can get myself into the racing seat. Racing with 30 degrees Celsius in the room is not nice. Anyway, I hope you now have more information about the Suzuki and that you can get the best out of it now. I hope I'll hear from you in the next tests that come out.